Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into Chapter 10 of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. You really want to understand this part of the story, huh? Well, good, because we're going to break it all down.
This chapter is where Shelley really gets philosophical. We see grief, responsibility, and the nature of humanity all coming together.
Right, okay. So we start with Victor trying to find peace in nature after a horrible tragedy. But is that all it is? Is he just looking for some peace and quiet?
Well, Shelley was writing in the Romantic era, so nature is this powerful force. It can be both beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Think about those huge glaciers, towering mountains, and dark forests full of pines.
So you're saying nature kind of reflects what Victor has done, this whole creation thing that's blown up in his face?
Exactly. Victor describes this feeling of the sublime, awe and fear. It shows us how serious this whole situation is, not just for Victor, but for everyone.
But even with all that incredible scenery, Victor's peace doesn't last. He gets all melancholy again, and even the weather seems to match his mood.
It's like his inner turmoil is spilling out into the world around him. Plus, there's that poem he quotes about mutability, how everything is constantly changing. It emphasizes how Victor's actions, like creating this creature, have real and lasting consequences. He can't just undo them.
So, to try and clear his head, he decides to climb Montanvert. Alone. He's been there before, and it had a good effect on him. But this time, the path is just desolate, really desolate, with signs of avalanches and dangerous ravines.
Yeah, Shelley's not holding back here. It's not just a physical climb up a mountain. It's a metaphor for this dangerous path that Victor is on, emotionally and morally. And it gets even more intense when he gets to the top.
Oh, right. The mist and the rain, they block his view of the valley below. It adds to the sense of isolation and melancholy. And then suddenly, boom,
Bum.
the creature appears. And he's fast, like superhuman speed, leaping over these treacherous crevasses. Talk about making an entrance. What do you make of how Shelley describes the creature?
Well, she's doing it on purpose. She's trying to show how different he is, how monstrous he seems. She uses words like unearthly ugliness and talks about the anguish and disdain in his expression. It's supposed to make Victor, and us as readers, afraid.
And Victor's reaction. Pure rage and hatred. He wants to destroy the creature right there, right then. But then, and we haven't seen this before, the creature speaks. And not just grunts or growls. He speaks with eloquence, depth. He expresses this, like loneliness and desire to be accepted.
This is where things get really interesting. The creature isn't just some dumb monster. He's complex, he can think, he has feelings, and the way he speaks so well, it makes us question what we think a monster really is.
He's saying that being miserable and isolated, that's what turned him into the fiend that he is now. He blames Victor for abandoning him, for not taking responsibility as his creator. He even threatens to hurt others if Victor won't listen to him.
And, his argument brings up some pretty serious philosophical questions, like about natural rights. He's basically saying, look, you made me. You have to care for me, and when you reject me and leave me alone, you're partly to blame for what I become.
Wow. He's saying, you made me this way, so now you have to deal with it. Victor's definitely struggling. He's horrified by the creature, but he also feels this massive guilt because, well, he created him.
Yeah, that's the conflict at the heart of this chapter. Victor feels fear and responsibility at the same time. At first, he doesn't want to listen, but then I think maybe a mix of curiosity and wanting to know if the creature killed his brother, that's what makes him agree.
So they start this really tense journey across the ice up to this hut on the mountain. And Shelley contrasts them so well, Victor's heavy heart, And then the creature, there's almost this exultation about him.
It's like the creature finally sees his chance to be heard, to tell a story. And that's where the chapter ends. We're left hanging, wondering if Victor will actually listen. Will understanding the creature change how he sees him? Or will he still just be afraid and disgusted?
This ending, it really leaves you hanging. And we haven't even heard the creature's side yet. This is great, really. So much to think about. But before we go any further, what stands out to you the most in this chapter?
I think what really gets me is how Shelley changes who has the power. Before this, Victor was in control. He's the creator, the one with knowledge, making all the decisions. But now, the creature's the one calling the shots. He demands Victor to listen, and Victor, well, he has to.
It's a pretty big shift, yeah. Makes you think. Does Shelley want us to see that even these beings we think of as monsters, do they deserve to be heard? Like, if we understand their story, maybe we'll see them differently.
That's the big question, right? Remember, the full title is Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. And in the myth, Prometheus steals fire from the gods, gives it to humans, kind of like what Victor's done with the secrets of life. But like Prometheus, Victor has to face the consequences.
And that fire he stole is this creature, this being who's amazing but scary at the same time. He even says, remember, I'm your creature, I should be your Adam, but instead I'm like the fallen angel.
It's such a powerful image. The creature, he wants connection, to belong, to be Victor's Adam, his friend in this strange new world. But instead, he's been pushed away, rejected. He's all alone.
In being alone, he says that's what twisted him into something monstrous. Like he wasn't born evil, but what happened to him, that's what made him this way.
It reminds me of that idea, tabula rasa, the blank slate. Like, the creature starts innocent, but society, or Victor rejecting him, that's what corrupts him.
It makes you think, maybe monsters aren't born, but made. So then who's really responsible for what the creature does? Just him? Or does Victor share the blame because he abandoned him? No easy answer to that one.
Yeah.
And where all this happens, up in the Alps, the glaciers, and the mountain peaks, that just adds to it, This desolate place like another world.
Like they're on the edge of everything, where society's rules don't really work anymore. It shows, like, the space they're both stuck in. Victor, the creator, haunted by what he made, and the creature, not human, not monster, somewhere in between.
And the way they look is so different, too. Victor's all bundled up against the cold, but the creature doesn't even seem to notice it.
Exactly. It shows he's different, stronger than us. He doesn't have the same limits as humans. That's what makes him fascinating and scary all at once.
Okay, so back to the story. The creature begs Victor. He says he'll leave everyone alone, but only if Victor listens to him.
It's their only chance, maybe, for the creature to have peace, for Victor to, I don't know, maybe redeem himself. But there's a threat there, too. Like, listen to me or else. The stakes are high, really high.
He's like, here's an olive branch, but I've got a sword, too. Shelley really knows how to keep us on the edge of our seats. Will Victor take the deal? Can he get over his fear and disgust to see the creature as something more than a monster? Can we, the readers, do that too?
That's the challenge, isn't it? To look past what's scary and try to understand the creature, his pain, what drives him. But before we get lost in all that, I want to go back to something you said earlier. The creature as a fallen angel. What do you think Shelley's doing with that comparison?
Yeah, it's a strange comparison, isn't it? This being created in a lab, all stitched together, and then you have these powerful angels who rebelled against God. How do those two things even connect?
Well, I think Shelley's tapping into this fear, about science going too far, pushing the limits of what we should know. The creature and the fallen angels, they both disrupt the natural order of things. The creature is Victor's ambition, his desire to play God, made flesh, and that ambition, it leads to a downfall for both of them.
So it's more than just, oh, a scientist makes a monster. It's about what happens when humans try to do too much, mess with forces they don't really get.
That's it, exactly. And then the creature is so eloquent, he can actually explain his suffering, make these philosophical arguments. It makes him even more disturbing, don't you think? Like, what even is a monster? What does it mean to be human?
Because if this creature, made from parts of dead bodies, if he can have such complex emotions, then what does that say about us? What makes us different?
Shelley forces us to ask those hard questions. She doesn't give us any easy answers. She wants us to think about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the real monsters are the ones who create them, abandon them, refuse to see them as, as people, too.
Wow. This deep dive has been incredible. Nature reflecting Victor's feelings, the creature's arguments, the fallen angel idea. But before we finish, I have to ask, what should we be watching for as we read the rest of the creature's story? What'll help us understand what he's saying?
Focus on his language. He's smart, and he uses words so well. How does he describe what he's been through? How does he try to convince Victor? And the most important thing, what does he tell us about how he understands right and wrong?
It's like we're finally going to hear the other side of the story.
Exactly. So as you listen to him, ask yourself, is he the villain? Or is he the victim? Or is it more complicated than that? Remember, this story isn't just about a scientist and his creation. It's a story about all of us, about good and evil.
It makes us think critically, question what we believe, and see the humanity in those we might think of as monsters. What does it all mean for you? What will you take away from our deep dive into Chapter 10 of Frankenstein? Let us know.